I was asked to make a clarification about Allah and unconditional love. So I'll add some things to that commentary. Allah Azza wa Jalla's love is vast and all-encompassing. And the word Rahmah, actually, which commonly gets translated as mercy, is not the best translation for Rahmah. The word Rahmah has two dominant ideas from the Arabic point of view. One of them is love and the other one is care. Love and care. Those are the two dominant ideas behind the word Rahmah. So the word mercy is maybe a third level meaning, but not the first level meaning of the word. And if you haven't heard me talk about that before, I'll briefly mention why that's important to know. If I say the teacher or the principal showed no mercy and suspended everyone, right? Or some students went to the teacher and said, mercy, mercy. Or the judge showed no mercy. Or the soldiers showed no mercy. You know what all of this has to do with? It has to do with being spared. So you're about to be punished, and then somebody was merciful, which means they didn't punish you, they spared you the punishment. Oh, you understand? The police officer was merciful, he didn't give you the ticket. Right? So actually mercy assumes something negative, and then somebody decided not to go forward, and they showed you mercy and they spared you. You get it? That's the English term mercy. Now the word Rahmah comes from raham, which is the womb of the mother. And the womb of the mother is a place where two things are happening. As the baby is growing inside the belly of the mom is increasingly loving the baby more and more. And the baby is being taken care of in every single capacity. His food, sleep, protection, shelter, from the elements, all of that's being taken care of inside the raham. When we are in the rahmah of Allah, we are in the absolute ever increasing love of Allah and His care. And the idea of condition and unconditioned, as explained in the Fatiha, is Allah provides His love and rahmah and care to everybody. Even Fir'aun, his lungs expanding and his lungs collapsing every time he inhales and exhales is actually an act of Allah's loving care towards him. Is even towards him. So life itself is a rahmah given to us by Allah. But at the end, Allah does mention in the Quran, there are some things you can do that if you keep on doing them, you can disqualify yourself from Allah's rahmah. Now, how long do you have to keep Allah's rahmah? So long as you're alive, right? So it's not too late so long as you're alive. The moment you die, it's too late. Now, at that point, it's too late. Now, what does Allah say, for example? Wallahu la yuhibbul zalimeen. Right? So Allah doesn't love people who do wrong. But He doesn't say Allah doesn't love people who has done anything wrong. Like one time you did something wrong. Allahu la yuhibbul zalimeen. Zalim is an ism fa'il, means people that keep on doing wrong and they make a lifestyle out of it. Right? So those kinds of people, they close the doors of Allah's love themselves. They close that door on themselves. The nations that God destroyed in the past, like the nation of Nuh, Salih, Lut, alayhim salam, the stories you guys know about, right? Those days when those punishments came, for those few moments, or that day, or that week, سَبْعَ لَيَالٍ وَثَمَانِيَةَ أَيَّامٍ حُسُومًا, for those days, the doors of Allah's love and care for those people closed. They disqualified themselves from Allah's love. That's what happened with them. But still the point holds. It's wrong to say just callously Allah's love is conditional. No. Allah's love is vast, all-encompassing. And it takes a lot for Allah to... He doesn't even say He hates. He never says He hates. He only says He doesn't love. La yuhib. Wallahu la yuhib. Right? So that's just an additional couple of comments for everybody to know about that. Anyway, so we left off on skipping one ayah number 38, where after describing those wonderful spouses of the Ashabul Yameen, Allah adds actually the phrase Li Ashabil Yameen in ayah number 38, for the people of the right. So that means that this section opened with Ashabul Yameen, ma Ashabul Yameen, and then it ends also Li Ashabil Yameen. The best way to understand the purpose of that is to contrast it, what happened with the Jannah described for As-Sabiqun. When Allah mentioned the spouses of the Sabiqun and how they were, right after that He said, Jaza'an bima kanu ya'malun. This is a compensation for what they used to do. This is compensation for what they used to do. Now you would expect, now that He describes the spouses of the next level Jannah, He would say something similar. This is also compensation for what they used to do. He didn't say that so directly. He just said, this is for the people on the right. Now that's indirectly saying the same thing. How is it indirectly saying the same thing? Because when you say people of the right, that means their book is in their right hand. And if their book is in the right hand represents good deeds. These are people of good deeds, and that's why their book is in their right hand. So by saying this is for the people of the right hand, it's almost like saying this is for the people of good deeds. This is for the people of good deeds. So that's one way to understand that. But still, there is an important distinction. For the people of us, among the Sabiqun, Allah did conclude by commenting directly on their actions. He said, Jaza'an bima kanu ya'malun. And this is important to note because the people of Sabaq, the people that got ahead of everybody else, their actions were in fact remarkable actions. There are lots of good deeds, but then there are some super special, awesome good deeds that are above and beyond, a cut above the rest. And those have to be acknowledged especially. So they were acknowledged especially. Now, the people who got saved, they still did good, they passed. But that's more a favor from Allah than anything else, right? They did their part, and Allah in His Rahmah added some bonus credit points and allowed them in. And then He gave them way more than they could ever have deserved even, right? So what we're getting here is fadlan min Allahi wa ni'mah, like Allah has given us more than we actually deserve. We barely passed and we're being treated like royalty. In fact, when someone is in this Jannah, when you're reading these ayat, you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of a normal Jannah. But if you and I make it there, and when you and I make it there, and may Allah give us the highest level of Jannah, but when we're there, we're not going to feel like, oh, it could be better. That's not going to be your feeling, you know? Like, yeah, I don't know, my accent changes when I say that, but it's subconscious. Because I think I learned it from my dad. I love my dad. My dad, like, the best compliment he will say is good. Like, that's as far as it goes. Like, there is no excellent. There is no, it's like, good. If you can just get a good, life is good after that. But then Allah is now further reinforcing one idea, that Allah is going out of His way to take care of the people of the right. So you should at least try to be the people of the right. So He opened with Ashabul Yameen, ma Ashabul Yameen, and then added an extra topping at the end, Li Ashabil Yameen. Thullatum min al-awwaleen wa thullatum min al-akhirin. Now, we're get to the scary part now. Wa Ashabul Shimali ma Ashabul Shimal. Now Allah says, and the people of the left, oh, what is going to become of the people of the left? What can you imagine of the people of the left? The ma, this istifham, is not the people of the left. Who are the people of the left? Not who, what? What do you think the people of the left are? Meaning, what state do you think they're in? What horrors do you think they're facing? What fate do you think they're about to meet? So, kul ma ya'ti fil bal, like everything that comes to the imagination is all targeted at the same time with just that echoed question, ma ashabu shimal. Now, the first obvious thing is, why are they called the people of the left? لِأَنَّهُمْ يَأْخُذُونَ كُتُبَهُمْ بِشِمَالِهِمْ. They're taking their books in their left. And by the way, you should know that the book, there's two things described in the Quran about the people who get their book on their left hands. May Allah not make any of us from them. These people will get their book in their left hand and it will be behind their back, وَرَاءَ ظَهْرِهِ. And they don't have control over their limbs, so they cannot pull their arm forward because their limbs are no longer under their control. So they have their book, it's bad, but it's in their left hand and it's behind their back. So it gets even worse because now they don't even know how bad it is. The people that get their book in their right hand, guess what happens with them? Ha umuqra'u kitabiyah inni dhanantu anni mulaqin hisabiyah fahuwa fi 'ishatin radiyah. He says, hey, come check out my book. Look, even this smile I did, even this hug I gave this person, even this, all of it counted. Allah wrote everything in here. Check it out. They're calling people to look at their report card. And the guy who gets the book in his left hand, he's got it behind his back. He can't even see it himself. So the guy behind him is like, oh. He goes, what? Tell me. You know, that's his state. Wa ashabu shimali ma ashabu shimal. But there is a clear contrast. There were at least two levels of Jannah described, right? Sabiqun, and then Ashabul Yameen, the first and the foremost, and then the Ashabul Yameen. So you would expect to balance the equation, you would get at least two levels of what? Jahannam also, just like they were for Jannah. There's an interesting, nuanced answer, multiple answers to that question. So let's read something that I read today from Dr. Fadl Salih Hassan Mirai, who I love to death. He's so amazing. Allah protect him. فأنا لما أقرأ هذه وأقرأ هذه. He says, when I read this part, meaning the Jannah part, and then I read the Jahannam part, أحرص على الأفضل فأحاول أن أقدم الخير. Or actually, when I read the higher level Jannah and I read the next level Jannah, I get inspired to do more good to qualify for which one? To the higher one, right? لكن الذي سيدخلهم جهنم. But however, the people who is going to enter into Jahannam, هو سيشتوي بمجرد دخولها لا مجال للتمايز. He says the person who Allah is going to put in the hellfire, whether he's in the lowest part of the hellfire or the upper part of the hellfire, they're going to burn anyway, right? So nobody's going to be like, I wish I'm like on the third floor, not the eighth. Like, no, there's no competition left about who's, there's no need for that. حتى الدركات هم نازلون فيها ليس هناك مجال للتنافس في أخذ الأفضل. The levels that they're going to be thrown into, there's no room for any competition. I want to just be in a better level Jahannam. Like doesn't make any sense. لما كان في الجنة مجال منافسة للأفضل كان عندنا الاثنان. That's why, because there is room for competition in Jannah, that's why there's two mentioned. Now, the other thing also is, are there two levels in Jannah or multiple levels in Jannah? There's multiple levels. But as I told you in Arabic literature, when you mention two, what can two represent? Many folds, right? There's another interesting question that a sister brought up, and I think that's important to add to this discussion. If you notice in both descriptions of Jannah, before we get deep into this stuff, in the descriptions of Jannah, you notice that there was a party, there was drinks, there was water, fruit, there was gatherings, etc., which means men and women. It's everybody. Everybody's included. Like when he says sabiqun, he doesn't say the men that are sabiqun. He just says sabiqun. Ashabul Yameen is not just the men that are Ashabul Yameen, it's all Ashabul Yameen. But all of a sudden there's mention of the spouses and their females. So clearly that is exclusive for who? For men. So there seems to be a part that's common. And then towards the end, there's a part that's exclusive to men. What's interesting linguistically is there's a break between the common part and then the private part that's exclusive to men. So what happens, for example, وَفَاكِهَةٍ مِمَّا يَتَخَيَّرُونَ مَجْرُورٌ وَلَحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. Right? So it starts with أَكْوَابٍ وَأَبَارِيقَ وَكَأْسٍ مِّن مَعِينٍ. Right? And then you hear the tanween, in. And then you get to the private life, and what happens? وَحُورٌ عِينٌ. There's an inqita', there's an isti'naf, there's a separation that happens. So this is the private part. Now what happens in the second Jannah? We saw fi sidrin makhdud wa talhim mandud wa dhillin mamdud. You hear the in sounds? Wa ma'in maskoob wa fakihatin kathira la maqtu'atin wa la mamnu'a. Everything's majroor, continuing one description. And then you would have expected wa urubin atrabin if you keep the same sequence, right? But he says, no, inna ansha'nahunna insha'a faja'alnahunna abkara uruban atraba, separating linguistically even, because that's a separate special thing that's just being described of the men. In other words, that part Allah spelled out for men, and that part Allah did not spell out for women. And as a reminder to all of you, when Allah doesn't spell something out, that actually isn't that because it's not there, but because it's beyond description. But Allah doesn't deem it fit to describe, or it is beyond words. Or there would be something wrong or something missing in describing it. In other words, had Allah described it and some woman said, that's not what I want, I don't want that, then that would become a problem, right? She said, I lived my whole life serving my husband. I do not want a husband in Jannah. I just don't. This is the one thing, my dua is, Ya Allah, not him. I'm good. Right? There are women like that. You may not know them. Don't raise your hand, please. Okay? Okay. But coming back to the description of Jahannam, look, just like passing in school, some kid got a 52, some kid got a 65, some kid got a 75, some kid got a 90. Are there ranks? Yeah. But one kid got a 48. He failed. One kid got a 42. He also failed. One kid got a 35. He also failed. One kid got a 7. They also fail. Are there rankings among the failures? No, they all failed. Whether you got a 7 or a 47, you didn't pass. It's all one level. So you see the logic of describing the levels of Jannah, but not describing the levels of Jahannam in the same way, right? Even though there are levels, there's no point in describing, by the way, this is what's going to happen on level 1. This is what's going to happen on level 2. And you're like, oh, I'm really scared of level 1, but level 2 I think should be okay. Like, that's not going to, that doesn't make any sense. And so that's the logic behind wa ashab al-shimal ma ashab al-shimal.